Judge Jeanine blasts reprimand Crockett, but her comeback stops the show cold. What happens when the self-crowned queen of conservative takedowns finally meets a first-term congresswoman who's read every page of her past? That question turned an ordinary Saturday night broadcast into appointment viewing for millions, and it's the spark that ignited the most talked about 30 seconds in recent cable news memory. The stage was Fox News. The combatants were Judge Jeanine Pirro, battle-hardened prosecutor turned primetime fixture, and Jasmine Crockett, the Texas lawyer whose cross-examinations in Congress have already racked up more viral views than some networks pull in a month. It was supposed to be a routine ambush, until it wasn't. Hours before cameras rolled, the network's Manhattan headquarters thrummed like a launch pad. Producers refreshed trending tabs, watching the hashtag #JudgeJeanine surge while right-wing influencers promised a takedown for the ages. Rumors suggest executives even cleared a backup hour of programming, convinced Pirro's highlight reel would be replayed well past midnight. On social media, supporters crafted memes in advance, confident the veteran host would leave her guest in fumbling, meme-ready fragments. They'd seen this movie before, or so they thought. Jeanine Pirro had every reason to believe the night would cement her legend. For decades, she'd wielded her legal pedigree like a blade, slicing through political opponents with rapid-fire accusations and a glare calibrated to rattle even seasoned senators. She thrived on the rhythm, set the trap, spring the receipts, bask in the applause. In her world, no one survived the on-air inquisition. Jasmine Crockett was expected to be next in line for the chopping block. Freshman Democrats, especially outspoken women of color, usually walk into cable studios wearing metaphorical targets. Yet friends say Crockett treats every confrontation like a closing argument. Research first, emotion later, truth always. During committee hearings, she can unspool 100 pages of testimony into one laser-precise question that leaves witnesses blinking. That quiet resolve traveled with her to New York, tucked neatly in a leather folder no one saw coming. Inside Studio D, the atmosphere felt part courtroom, part coliseum. A live audience, heavy on red caps and back the blue pins, buzzed with anticipation, some already drafting celebratory tweets. Between them stood 2 lecterns and years of ideological baggage. On one side, a judge who'd built her brand on declaring guilt before doubt. On the other, a defender whose career began with representing people the system tried to forget. Neither woman believed in retreat. The clash promised more than policy debates. This was generational, cultural, almost mythic. Establishment versus insurgency, cable veteran versus digital native, polished marble floors versus scuffed courthouse tiles. Reports claim even veteran technicians felt an electric unease, as if they sensed the script might veer off teleprompter. When the red light blinked live, you could hear a collective inhale, the kind producers pray for and anchors try to control. Pirro opened with her trademark frost, greeting Crockett the way a seasoned litigator greets a hostile witness. The congresswoman responded with a smile so measured it bordered on surgical. No fireworks yet, just a slow tightening of invisible screws. Viewers leaned in, waiting for the moment the judge would deliver her classic knockout line. Instead, something else materialized, a slim folder sliding onto the desk, its tab marked simply public record. What happened next shattered the network's narrative, flipped social media on its head, and left one legendary host searching for a lifeline she couldn't find. But before we dissect the documents, the gasps, and the aftermath that still ripple through DC donor circles, remember the opening question. What really happens when unstoppable hype collides with immovable preparation? Keep watching, because the answer rewrote more than one career, and it's only just beginning. By the time Fox splashed its first promo, the confrontation already felt historic. 33-second teaser clips rolled every hour. Thunderclap graphics, ominous drumline, a freeze frame of Judge Jeanine Pirro, mid-glare opposite Jasmine Crockett's cool half-smile. On-screen text slammed like a gavel. This Saturday, the showdown of the century. Cable news usually thrives on hyperbole. This time, even seasoned viewers sensed the stakes were different. Inside Fox headquarters, producers treated the episode like a heavyweight title bout. They reworked the primetime grid, bumping a pre-taped true crime special and pulling guest panels from every adjacent show just to keep the runway clear. A leak to trade reporters hinted that ad slots were selling at Super Bowl prices. Pharmaceutical giants jostled for the 9:05 p.m. break. betting on record numbers. One network insider joked that the control room would have more eyeballs than a NASA launch. Conservative influencers amplified the hype into a digital drumbeat. Hours after the promo dropped, #Judge Jeanine wins rocketed to Twitter's #1 trending slot. Meme smiths flooded timelines with photoshops. Pirro wielding Thor's hammer above a cowering congresswoman. Crockett depicted as a marionette dangling from radical left strings. YouTube commentators predicted a career-ending exposure for the freshman Democrat, scheduling live reaction streams before the taping eve. Then began. On Facebook, right-wing pages circulated decade-old clips of Pirro eviscerating previous guests, captioned, "Imagine what she'll do to the rookie." Fox leaned into the fervor with cinematic flair. A second trailer spliced slow-motion shots of studio lights powering up, audience bleachers filling, Pirro's stilettos clicking across the polished floor. A gravel-voiced narrator declared, "Saturday night, truth takes the stand." The spot ended on a tight zoom of a gavel slamming down, the impact synced to a bass drop that rattled living room soundbars nationwide. But outside the conservative echo chamber, another current flowed. Progressive TikTok creators stitched the promo with montages of Crockett's viral committee interrogations, her precision dismantling evasive witnesses, her deadpan reclaiming my time, puncturing Stonewall tactics. They floated a counter hashtag, #receipts-ready. Views climbed past 4 million in 24 hours, attracting curious centrists who rarely tuned into Fox. Reddit threads in r/politics speculated that Pirro might be walking into her own ambush, citing Crockett's reputation for bringing the binder. Traditional media added fuel. The Washington Post's style section teased a generational clash fit for Shakespearean drama, while Variety framed it as the cable event that could reboot a sagging time slot. Even late-night hosts pre-wrote monologue jokes, hedging bets on who would emerge meme-worthy by Monday. Meanwhile, both camps rehearsed in isolation. Pirro's team assembled a dossier thick enough to choke a shredder, voting records, old law school tweets, any clip where Crockett paused mid-sentence, prime fodder for gotcha sound bites. They storyboarded the interview down to 30-second beats, scripting applause cues for the live audience. Staffers whispered that the judge had practiced her opening salvo so many times it felt like muscle memory. Across town, Crockett's advisors took a quieter route. They built timelines, cross-referenced public record databases, and highlighted every instance Pirro had profited from companies later embroiled in scandal. A former litigation paralegal reportedly spent 2 days matching court-filed exhibits to on-air statements, flagging discrepancies in neon tabs. The result? A slim, innocuous-looking folder. One that, if needed, could flip control of the narrative in a single-page turn. As Saturday approached, the hype crescendoed. Betting markets, notorious for political prop wagers, opened a line on Pirro interrupt count, with the over-under set at 9. Podcasts dissected body language tells, wondering whether Crockett's practiced calm might unsettle the famously fiery host. Even Fox rivals MSNBC and CNN teased cross-network highlights, silently acknowledging that for once, someone else's programming could steal their Saturday spotlight. Yet amid the spectacle, a quieter tension brewed inside Studio D. Veteran camera operators swapped tales of on-air meltdowns they'd witnessed, but none could recall a night freighted with this many expectations. "Feels like a powder keg," one grip muttered while taping down cables. Another replied, "Yeah, question is, who's holding the match?" In the final hour before airtime, Manhattan's skyline reflected crimson studio lights, as if echoing the network's brand palette. Viewers across the political spectrum settled in, some eager for ideological bloodshed, others curious whether tightly spun hype might finally unravel live. The table was set, the hashtags locked, and 2 radically different playbooks primed for collision. All that remained was the red tally light, and whatever truths or surprises it would illuminate. Jeanine Pirro's rise reads like a thriller about power, jasminecrockett's like a parable about persistence, and every line of their backstories pointed them toward the same studio spotlight. Pirro's opening chapter began in Westchester County's marble-lined courthouses. Fresh out of Albany law in 1975, she blitzed through the district attorney's office with a conviction-first mentality that turned legal filings into media currency. By the late 1980s, Reporters routinely called her the Velvet Guillotine. Velvet for the designer suits, guillotine for the way defendants' careers, or occasionally their lives, ended under her indictments. A 1991 People magazine profile cemented her as a crime-fighting celebrity, and Fox producers soon realized she could cross-examine camera lenses as ruthlessly as witnesses. Television amplified her courtroom cadence. On court TV, she learned to pivot from jurisprudence to showmanship, then parlayed guest hits on The O'Reilly Factor into her own Saturday night citadel, Justice with Judge Jeanine. Ratings thrived on her signature 1-2 punch, a legal citation followed by a verbal haymaker. Controversy never lagged far behind. A 2019 on-air diatribe questioning a congresswoman's patriotism led to a 2-week suspension. Leaked memos show advertisers briefly froze placements, only to return when the outrage spiked viewership. Through it all, Pirro polished a credo carved from prosecutorial granite: attack first, concede never. Yet the very resume that won conservative devotion contains fault lines. Court records show 37 formal complaints of prosecutorial misconduct filed during her DA tenure. None stuck, but several sparked appellate reversals that critics say reveal a win-at-all-costs DNA. Speaking fee disclosures list appearances for entities later convicted of financial crimes, including a 2019 keynote for a firm now infamous for defrauding retirees. These details quietly trailed Pirro like loose threads, harmless so long as no one decided to tug. Crockett, meanwhile, wrote her story in fluorescent-lit public defender bullpens far from cable gloss. Raised in Dallas by a teacher mom and HVAC tech dad, she balanced evening classes at Southern Methodist University's law school with daytime shifts tutoring at-risk teens. Upon passing the Texas bar, she ignored big firm recruiters and opted for the county public defender's office, a decision friends called career suicide, and she called tuition for empathy. Over 12 years, she handled everything from misdemeanor theft to capital murder, earning a rep for unearthing police report inconsistencies that seasoned judges missed. Colleagues joked she could find a typo in a confession. Her leap into politics came after she watched a state house committee gut funding for indigent defense. Campaigning on a shoestring, she knocked 20,000 doors and flipped a deep red district blue, then vaulted to Congress 2 years later when a scandal-plagued incumbent retired. In Washington, she carved viral moments out of otherwise sleepy hearings, a rapid-fire interrogation that forced a defense contractor to admit price inflation, a lethal let me rephrase in plain English that left a hedge fund CEO staring at the ceiling tiles. Clips of these encounters rack up millions of TikTok views, helped by captions like, "When courtroom energy meets congressional oversight." Crockett's ambitions, however, never required pyrotechnics, only preparation. Staffers describe her desk as organized chaos of color-coded binders, each tabbed to a specific witness inconsistency. That meticulousness caught the eye of House leadership, who tapped her for high-profile oversight slots despite her freshman status. Republicans branded her AOC's understudy, but a bipartisan bloc of court reform advocates quietly funnels her internal memos. In short, where Pirro trusts instincts, Crockett trusts footnotes. Their trajectories would have remained parallel lines, one ruling Saturday nights, the other lighting up C-SPAN snippets, if not for a Fox segment producer dreaming of ratings gold. The pitch was simple: pit a legendary prosecutor against a rising defender, let sparks fly. What nobody at Fox gamed out was how symmetrically their strengths and weaknesses aligned. By the time invitations were signed, the collision felt inevitable. Pirro accepted imagining a routine demolition. Crockett agreed, knowing every second would stream to millions, and that truth, once televised, rarely rewinds. Two careers, both forged in courtrooms but tempered by opposite philosophies, were set on intersecting vectors. In Studio D, they would finally cross, and the laws of momentum promised only one victor when opposing forces of equal magnitude meet head-on. Studio D's red tally light blinked on, and the hush that fell over the mega hat crowd felt almost sacramental. Judge Jeanine Pirro leaned forward, elbows planted, eyes flashing the way courtroom witnesses remembered just before she dismantled them. Her opening line landed like a gavel. "Congresswoman Crockett," she began, each consonant clipped, Thank you for finally mustering the courage to face questions millions of Texans want answered. A ripple of applause, sharp, approving, rolled through the bleachers. Pirro capitalized on it, voice rising half a key. You've been in Congress 16 months, yet you've voted to gut police budgets, jack up taxes on working families, and bankroll socialist pipe dreams. Tell America, why should anyone trust a rookie radical with their paychecks or their safety? Classic Pirro, compress 3 accusations into one breath, then pause just long enough for the sting to register. Across the desk, Jasminecrockett met the glare with an almost meditative calm, hands folded, chin lifted a degree above neutral. She answered, head with a measured, Judge, I appreciate the chance to clarify. Pirro cut her off before the second syllable. Clarify? Let's clarify right now. She snapped her fingers. A floor producer cued a graphic on the giant wall screen behind them. Crockett votes to defund. The chyron flashed cherry red, underscored by a siren sting sound effect. House Bill 3742, Pirro recited. You supported cutting $1.2 billion from local law enforcement grants. That's defund the police, plain and simple. You may call it reallocation, but to the mom who can't get a patrol car when bullets fly, it's betrayal. Explain that. The applause swelled. Some spectators rose for a standing ovation they assumed would be the first of many. Crockett waited, eyes scanning the audience, as if measuring the tempo of the room. I'll address that vote, she said, after we agree on the numbers. Numbers? Pirro pounced. The only number that matters is how many officers you shoved onto the unemployment line. From the control room, the director cut to a tight 2-shot. Pirro rigid, chin jutted, Crockett serene, almost amused. The visual contrast alone was theater. Pirro barreled on. Let's pivot to taxes. You co-sponsored a bill raising corporate rates to 28%, knowing it would slam small manufacturers in your own district. Did you even read the economic impact statement, or were you too busy chasing Instagram likes from coastal elites? Somewhere in row 3, a supporter hollered, "Boom!" The judge flashed a quick smile of affirmation. She smelled blood. Judge, Crockett interjected, still polite, if you'll allow. I'll allow facts, Pirro shot back, borrowing courtroom diction. Speaking of which, let's expose another one. She signaled again. The wall screen flipped to a frozen C-SPAN frame of Crockett questioning a witness. The overlay read, grandstanding for viral clips. You grilled a decorated Border Patrol chief for 12 minutes, never let him finish. A sentence, then clipped the exchange for TikTok. Congratulations on 4 million views, Pirro sneered. But Texans got nothing except a soundbite circus. The tension peaked. The judge's tempo quickened. She tapped a stack of folders, her own purported receipts, and spread 3 across the desk like playing cards. Here, 1 vote to slash border security funding, 1 earmark for climate justice gardens, 1 subpoena you skipped to film a podcast. Which headline do you want first? Crockett finally leaned in, voice soft but cutting through the noise. Judge, I'd like to answer in the order you asked, starting with policing. Pirro waved dismissively. We're on my clock. Give viewers one good reason you deserve their trust after this record of radicalism. For the audience, the script felt familiar. Pirro cornering, Crockett pinned. Camera 3 captured a woman in a Stars and Stripes cardigan whispering, "She's toast." On social media, conservative live streams began scrolling W for Jeanine graphics before Crockett uttered a full paragraph. Yet beneath the judge's verbal fusillade, something subtle shifted. Crockett's gaze dropped, briefly, to a slim leather folder by her elbow. She rested a fingertip on its tab, as though confirming a launch code. Then she exhaled, glanced back at Pirro, and smiled with the confidence of someone who knows Act 1 always belongs to the prosecutor. But trials are won in cross-examination. Pirro didn't notice. She pressed on, stacking grievances into a crescendo. Bottom line, you champion policies that hurt the very people you claim to protect. No filibusters, no talking points, confess your hypocrisy, or I will. The audience roared approval. A producer mouthed, keep it rolling, convinced the knockout blow was imminent. What no one realized, yet, was that Crockett's silence wasn't surrender. It was set up. The fingertip lifted from T. He folder. A latch clicked open, and the momentum Judge Jeanine believed unbreakable was about to reverse in a single, surgical page turn. The studio's LED backdrop still flashed Crockett votes to defund when the Congresswoman's manicured thumb pressed open the leather folder. A new graphic was ready to slam her, but it never aired. Every eye, from producers in the control room to the MAGA cap kid in row 5, Locked onto a single sheet she slid across the desk. "Judge, before we go further," she began, voice steady as a bailiff's oath, "let's give viewers full context, yours included." The camera zoomed so tight that watermark lines on the document were visible. "This is the public deed to your Westchester residence, purchased for $3.2 million in cash." Gasps rippled through the bleachers. Pierrot's trademark smirk faltered for the first time tonight. Crockett didn't gloat. She proceeded like counsel reading evidence into the record. "That home, plus the Manhattan condo and Montauk getaway, puts your real estate holdings north of $6.8 million. Yet moments ago you called a 28% corporate tax crippling, while families in my district scrape together rent on $42K a year." She paused, letting arithmetic, not rhetoric, do the punching. A producer muttered, "Cut to B-cam." No one moved. Pierrot inhaled to retort, but Crockett was already lifting page 2. "And here," she said, tapping the letterhead, "is your 2019 speaking contract with Gen Equity Capital." The name meant little to the live audience. It meant everything to financial reporters. Gen Equity, as viewers may recall, was convicted in 2021 for a $140 million pension fraud. You accepted a $150,000 honorarium, plus first-class airfare and a chauffeured Escalade, 3 weeks after internal emails flagged the firm as under federal probe. The wall screen behind them went blank. A control room tech killed the feed to avoid displaying details Fox hadn't cleared. Too late. Crockett leaned closer, voice lower, almost sympathetic. "Judge, you were specifically warned." She produced an email printed in 14-point font. "Potential headline risk. Client-facing SEC scrutiny," your agent wrote. "Advise decline." You replied, "Close the deal. Their check clears." A collective exhale whooshed from the bleachers like air escaping a ruptured tire. Pierrot's eyes darted stage left, maybe seeking a floor director to bail her out with an early commercial. None bit. She tried a laugh, brittle as glass. "Congresswoman, paid speeches are standard. I speak to hundreds of groups. I don't screen every client's—" "Except you did screen this one," Crockett interjected gently, "and decided the money outweighed the risk." She gestured toward the home studios now clipping the exchange in real time. "You've spent years branding yourself the guardian of hard-working taxpayers. So tell them, when a firm looted those taxpayers' pensions, why was your standard fee suddenly worth $150K instead of the usual $50K? A woman in the audience whispered, "She's got her." Someone shushed her. The silence was surgical now. Pierrot reached for her own stack of folders, her earlier confidence gone. "If we want to talk about wealth," she began, voice cracking, "how about your campaign donors? Hollywood elites bankrolling?" Crockett raised a single finger, not scolding, commanding quiet like a seasoned judge. "My donors are online in FEC filings, but you, Judge, built an image of middle-class champion while accruing $1.3 million in combined property tax abatements. Records show you claimed the star exemption on 2 homes simultaneously, illegal under New York law." She flipped to the statute highlighted in neon. "Penalty is double repayment plus interest. Will you cut that check on air tonight?" The audience groaned, some in disbelief, others in sympathy for their embattled icon. Pierrot's jaw flexed. No words emerged. In the control room, a senior producer whispered, "We've lost." The segment, "Social media lost its mind." #Crockett receipts leapt to Twitter's top trend. The meme machine painted Pierrot's mansion in Monopoly colors with "Do not pass go, repay taxes" scrawled over it. Financial journalists began drafting provisional headlines. "Pierrot's pension scam payday?" "Fox hosts double-dip tax break exposed." Back on set, Crockett sealed the folder, resting her palm atop it like a judge concluding docket. "You invited me here to talk about policy. I'm still eager, but credibility is the ticket to that dance." She turned, addressing the camera directly. "Viewers deserve to know whether the person grilling their elected officials can stand the same heat." Pierrot opened her mouth. No script, no teleprompter save. A single syllable escaped. "You," then died in her throat. Crockett leaned back, composed. She'd used only 3 documents, yet detonated a decade of curated persona. The red tally light blinked as the director finally punched to commercial, 9 minutes ahead of schedule. But the damage had already gone live, clipped, captioned, and beamed to 1 million smartphones. In that instant between Pierrot's stammer and the fade to black, political television felt a tectonic jolt. The moment hype met homework, and homework won. The commercial bumper's thumping music faded, and Studio D's air felt suddenly thin. Viewers barely had time to tweet about mansions and speaking fees when Jasmine Crockett raised a fresh manila envelope. Thicker than the last, corners bristling with neon tabs. Her tone never rose above conversational, yet every sentence tightened like a vice. "Judge, you've spent decades branding yourself the victim's champion," she began, unfolding page 1 beneath the overhead camera. "But tonight, let's meet some victims who never made your highlight reel." A court order dated 2003 filled the screen. People vs. Molina. 15 years behind bars, Crockett. Narrated, fingertip tracing the clerk's seal. Before suppressed lab notes proved Mr. Molina was 300 miles away during the crime. Your office called the omission a filing oversight. Taxpayers later paid $4.7 million to settle his wrongful conviction suit. A ripple, part gasp, part groan, rolled through the bleachers. Pierrot's jaw tensed, but Crockett continued, flipping to the next exhibit with practiced rhythm. People v. Van, 1998. DNA from an unidentified third party, never disclosed to defense, overturned the conviction after 9 years. The settlement is still pending. Pierrot found her voice. Appeals happen in every jurisdiction. True, Crockett agreed, nodding, but state audits show New York's average reversal rate for prosecutorial error is 11%. During your tenure, it was 23%, the highest in the state. She lifted a bar graph from the Office of Court Administration, a crimson column dwarfing its neighbors. "That's not a blip, that's a pattern." Camera 3 captured a veteran audience member, arms crossed, brows knit, murmuring, "23? The murmur spread like static. Crockett pressed on. People vs. Delacroix, 2001. Key witness later testified your investigators threatened deportation to secure his statement. Case vacated. People vs. Wallace, 1997. Evidence log conveniently misplaced until after sentencing. Judge's rebuke. Pattern of discovery abuse. She paused, let the list settle, then set down a heavier file. 37 formal misconduct complaints filed with New York's Grievance Committee. 0 ever mentioned on your show when you critique soft-on-crime liberals. Pierrot attempted a knowing smile, but her voice cracked. Anyone can file a complaint. None were sustained. None were pursued, Crockett corrected softly, sliding forward a letter from the committee requesting additional documentation. Documentation your office never supplied. Pa, per work buried isn't the same as paperwork cleared. Studio lights felt harsher now. Even loyal fans sensed a tide shifting. A control room producer whispered, "We need B-roll," but nobody cut away. The live feed was too combustible to interrupt. Crockett laid out one final exhibit, a spreadsheet of overturned convictions, each cell color-coded by cause. You framed wrongful prosecutions as rare anomalies. Yet in Westchester alone, 9 vacated cases linked directly to evidence your assistants withheld or misrepresented. 9 families lost years while the Law and Order brand minted TV contracts. Pierrot opened her binder, shaky hands rifling for a rebuttal. "Congresswoman, I protected communities from violent offenders, and also from innocent men," Crockett interjected, voice ironclad. "Protection cuts both ways, Judge. Accountability demands we guard against crimes and against abuses of power." The audience fell silent. Even the rustle of note cards ceased. In that hush, Crockett leaned back, empathy edging her expression. "No career is flawless, but credibility hinges on acknowledging flaws before castigating others. You demanded my record. I've produced yours." Pierrot's reply stalled behind a tight-lipped grimace. She wasn't out of arguments, only out of oxygen. The prosecutorial armor she'd worn for decades felt suddenly perforated by data points no spin could plaster. Crockett closed the envelope with a soft thud. "The floor is yours, Judge. Tell viewers why a 23% reversal rate, 37 misconduct claims, and millions in taxpayer settlements still entitle you to lecture anyone about justice." Pierrot stared at the camera, eyes glossy under studio glare, as if gauging which audience to address, the one in front of her or the millions online, already slicing this segment into viral GIFs. Behind the glass, a senior executive mouthed, "Go to break." Yet the director hesitated. History was unfolding at 24 frames per second. 4. A heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the theme music finally swelled, mercifully escorting Fox to commercial. But the damage had detached itself from the broadcast. It lived now in court documents beamed to every smartphone, in hashtags metastasizing across timelines, in appellate attorneys queuing inbox searches for long-forgotten case files. Studio D's lights dimmed for ads, yet somewhere in Westchester, a phone began to ring, alerting the former DA that ghosts of past cases had just reclaimed prime time. Rupert Murdoch's corporate headquarters is 12 floors above Studio D. But the tremor that began when Jasmine Crockett opened her binder rattled every desk in the building. Within 90 seconds of the Westchester Mansion deed hitting the screen, Fox's real-time analytics, normally a sea of green arrows, flashed crimson. Viewership wasn't dropping, sentiment was. An internal dashboard that scores host authority plummeted from 82 to 47 in 2 refresh cycles. That had never happened to a primetime brand in the network's 26-year history. Producers barked contradictory orders through headsets. One yelled, "Cut to commercial," while another warned that an unscheduled break would signal panic. A senior vice president burst onto the studio floor mid-segment, unheard of during a live broadcast, and scribbled "Move on" a cue card. Pirro glanced up, saw the note, but froze. Crockett was citing misconduct stats too fast to intercept. In the adjacent social media war room, the hashtag plan collapsed. Hashtag Judge Jeanine. Wins was supposed to trend for 48 hours. 7 minutes into the meltdown, Crockett receipts ranked #1 worldwide. Staffers frantically pushed pre-made memes of Pirro as Thor's hammer, only to watch them buried under gifs of a gavel shattering like glass. At 9:18 p.m. Eastern, a red banner on the control room monitor read, "RM Line 1. Insiders later leaked that Rupert Murdoch himself demanded, "How the hell did this get past vetting? Stabilize the segment or pull the feed." Pulling the feed would have meant dead air across 90 million households, riskier than riding out the storm. So executives opted for damage control. Sprint copywriters drafted an on-screen disclaimer, "Views expressed are those of the guests," that rolled in microscopic font beneath the chyron. Viewers barely noticed. Twitter did. Commercial breaks offered no refuge. By the second ad block, 2 blue-chip sponsors, one pharmaceutical, one automaker, emailed provisional pause directives, instructing Fox sales not to rerun their spots during any replay of the episode. Legal called this a soft pull, but the accounting team already modeled an 8-figure quarterly hit if others followed. Ironically, the minute-by-minute Nielsen graph spiked. Curiosity lured MSNBC and CNN viewers to sample the carnage. Yet the higher the numbers climbed, the deeper the reputational crater. Media monitoring firm Peak Logic captured a 210% surge in negative sentiment toward Pirro's brand persona during the live hour 2. Crisis PR consultants compare that to the fallout after Bill O'Reilly's 2017 harassment exposé, only compressed into a single segment. Fox personalities scrambled to distance themselves. Greg Gutfeld's team quietly edited a scheduled Pirro appearance from the next night's rundown. On the 5, Jessica Tarlov offered a lukewarm, "We'll wait for all the facts," while co-hosts pivoted to safer culture war fodder. A leaked Slack thread showed younger producers questioning whether the network's signature ambush format was past its sell-by date. One line, attributed to a booking coordinator, read, "If receipts are the new ammo, we're bringing knives to a drone fight." Cat. Competing outlets pounced. MSNBC's The Beat cut in with live commentary, replaying Crockett's tax abatement slide on a split screen next to Murdoch's Dominion deposition clip about hosts endorsing false claims. The juxtaposition went viral, framing the moment as Fox's ethical tipping point. Even traditionally neutral NPR ran a late-night segment titled "When the Prosecutor Becomes the Defendant," noting parallels to past fractures in the Murdoch-Trump alliance. Before midnight, an after-hours trading alert showed Fox Corp. Down 2.4%. Analysts cited reputational volatility and flagged the possibility of renewed advertiser scrutiny similar to the Dominion defamation fallout. One hedge fund memo bluntly stated, "If primetime can't guarantee safe harbor for brands, pricing power erodes." Back in Studio D, the final seconds of the broadcast limped to a close. Pirro, visibly shaken, managed a perfunctory, "We'll continue this conversation," that fooled no one. When cameras cut, applause signs blinked, but the audience stayed mute, unsure whether clapping was appropriate for a train wreck. Lights dimmed, yet nobody moved. Technicians stared at dark monitors, still expecting some last-minute rescue graphic. Instead, the only glow came from smartphones recording Pierrot's silent exit, her stilettos clicking like a metronome marking the end of an era. That night, Fox learned a brutal ratings lesson. Outrage may drive viewership, but unchecked arrogance can drive a brand off a cliff in under 10 minutes. And as the network scrambled to patch the fissures, one phrase echoed through Slack channels and emergency meetings alike. Next time, vet the guest's folder. Studio D's Klieg lights cooled, but the heat radiating from that 9-minute meltdown kept entire institutions sweating through the night. The confrontation stopped broadcasting at 9:59 p.m. By 10:07, the first SH waves had already reached Congress, Madison Avenue, and a surprising corner of the criminal justice system. Fox's Manhattan lobby filled with reporters before Pierrot's makeup was off. Every question circled the same point. Would the network stand by its star or cut the anchor line? Communications chiefs offered corporate platitudes, no decisions at this time. Yet their frantic phone cadence told a darker story. An internal memo leaked to Semaphore at 10:43 p.m. listed 3 stabilization priorities. On Capitol Hill, the Crockett clip became instant currency. Moderate Democrats deployed it in fundraising emails titled Truth versus Talking Points. Progressive caucus chats buzzed about giving Crockett a larger oversight portfolio. One leadership aide quipped, "When you humble Fox in their own house, you earn the gavel." Across the aisle, GOP strategists drafted counter-messaging blaming left-wing ambush tactics, but privately they worried. Several committee chairs had pending invitations from Pierrot's show. Post-debacle, accepting looked perilous, declining looked weak. One senior advisor summarized the mood. "She just made Oppo research go prime time. No one's safe." By midnight, 5 more big-ticket advertisers had paused buys for any slot adjacent to Pierrot's program, citing brand safety reviews. Most were household names in insurance, autos, and consumer tech, industries that traditionally anchor cable news ad blocks. Each pause dimmed Fox's ability to monetize its most profitable hour. An analyst email making the rounds before dawn estimated a $5 million revenue gap if the freeze held 2 weeks. Investors awoke to headlines about Pierrot risk dragging on Fox shares. The Washington Post assigned a 3-reporter task force to audit every overturned conviction from Pierrot's Westchester tenure. ProPublica filed FOIA requests for her DA emails. Law podcast hosts booked wrongfully convicted guests for Monday tapings under the umbrella theme, When Prosecutors Go Unprosecuted. And even entertainment outlets joined in. Variety teased a column on how courtroom cosplay finally met real legal scrutiny. Civil rights lawyers saw more than spectacle. They saw potential clients. By Sunday, the Innocence Project reported a 600% spike in inquiries from former Westchester defendants claiming evidence suppression. 2 had case numbers matching Crockett's on-air exhibits. A class action whisper began circulating. If a pattern of misconduct can be substantiated, taxpayers might owe far more than $4.7 million for Molina. Inside Fox, factions formed overnight. Veteran producers defended Pierrot, arguing that every host gets ambushed eventually. Younger staffers sided with data. The Host Authority Index recovered only to 56 by Monday's editorial meeting, still far below its pre-show norm. HR's employee channel overflowed with anonymous pleas to rethink gotcha booking before more reputations detonated on live TV. Crockett's Instagram follower count jumped 212,000 in 36 hours. Her ActBlue page crashed twice from traffic spikes. Meanwhile, Pierrot's Facebook fan engagement dropped 47%, the sharpest single-week fall the platform's analytics team had seen outside a scandal involving criminal charges. Meme culture crowned Crockett with a new nickname, the Binder, while depicting Pierrot fleeing a flaming gavel. Pierrot canceled 2 paid speeches and, according to insiders, retained a crisis management firm previously used by high-profile athletes. Colleagues noticed fewer hallway greetings from executives. She remained on air the following Saturday, but the set looked subtly different. No live audience, no towering graphic packages, just Piero at a lone desk, lobbing monologues into a digital void. Crockett, for her part, downplayed victory, tweeting, "Truth is a team sport, thank my staff." Still, DC whispers floated her as keynote for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's Fall Gala. She declined interview offers from every network, including Fox, replying that work in the district awaits. Yet pictures surfaced of her staff wheeling extra file boxes into her Dallas office. Apparently, she'd decided the binder deserves a sequel. Beyond burnt ratings and bruised egos, the showdown redrew battle lines for political media. Hosts learned guests might arrive armed with receipts sharper than any question. Networks learned hype cannot outrun homework. And audiences discovered the rarest plot twist in cable news. Sometimes the narrative flips for good, and collateral damage keeps unfolding long after the cameras fade to black. Every so often, a single televised moment punches a dent in the well-oiled machinery of political media. Jasminecrockett's live dismantling of Judge Jeanine Pirro did exactly that, and the fallout offers a cautionary tale for anyone who builds a brand on unquestioned authority. Facts still outrun theatrics. Pirro entered the studio armed with zingers and zingy graphics. Crockett walked in with primary source documents. Viewers may love spectacle, yet when hard receipts land on screen, attention pivots from volume to veracity. Audiences have evolved. In the era of real-time clipping and crowdsourced fact checks, a host's home court advantage can evaporate in minutes. What once took investigative reporters days to expose now unfolds second by second on social feeds, meaning a half-truth is vulnerable the instant it's spoken. Gotcha formats are brittle. Fox's ambush model relies on guests freezing under pressure, but the same live framework becomes a trap for the host when a guest arrives better researched. Networks learned that hype without vet, ting is combustible. Future bookers will scrutinize the folder a guest might bring. Accountability cuts both ways. Pirro's brand thrived on demanding contrition from others. The binder forced her to taste her own medicine. The episode reminds power brokers, prosecutors, pundits, politicians that histories once thought buried can resurface, televised and time-stamped. Preparation is the new charisma. Crockett didn't win with quips or theatrics. She won by methodical calm, proof that meticulous groundwork can outshine even the most practiced stagecraft. So what lingers after the memes fade? A shift in the audience contract. Viewers now expect that anyone wielding outrage also withstands scrutiny. In a landscape where ratings once rewarded the loudest voice, the viral clip reintroduced an older standard. Show your work or risk losing the mic.